Baroness Ritchie of Downpatrick.
Lords, I beg leave to ask the question standing in my name on the order paper.
The Government is deeply concerned about the findings of the IPCC's latest report, which show that there is no doubt that human activity have changed the climate. The report is a further warning of the need for urgent global action to reduce greenhouse gas emissions over the next decade and reach net zero around 2050. And this reinforces the importance of achieving the Government's COP26 objectives and the necessity of a UK transition to net zero.
Ritchie of Downpatrick.
Could I thank the Minister for and the Noble Lord the Minister for his answer, bearing in mind that the Noble Lord the Minister has indicated the Government's concerns around the findings in the report. Therefore, what new governmental governance and statutory measures will the Government bring forward in terms of amendments to the report stage of the Environment Bill and other means to deliver on climate change and greenhouse gas reductions, and what plans will therefore be brought to COP26 in Glasgow later this year, outlining that necessary climate change stabilisation scheme?
I totally understand the Noble Lady's points, but of course we have already legislated for the greenhouse gas emissions as covered by the Climate Change Act. Therefore, our position that we don't need to cover any further measures within the Environment Bill as it is at the moment. We will publish before COP our net zero strategy to set out our plans to meet these ambitious targets, and we have also engaged regularly with the devolved administrations.
My Lords, we all agree, I'm sure, that the climate emergency is an immensely complex subject with many different facets. There's an urgent need and responsibility to educate and engage the public in responsible ways on the urgent priority of public and private action. Does the Minister agree that investment and a serious programme of public engagement is needed to combat climate change deniers, climate change delayers, and also those who say there's no hope and there's nothing that can be done? What are the Government's plans for this?
Well, indeed, the Right Reverend Prelate makes some good points, and of course tackling climate change must be a shared endeavour. Our ambition puts affordability and fairness at the heart of our efforts, and that goes hand in hand with supporting economic growth and prosperity. And we support a number of campaigns to do exactly that, such as the Simple Energy Advice campaign and Together for Our Planet.
Ms McIntosh of Pickering.
May I congratulate the Intergovernmental Panel on a serious and thorough piece of work and on the action that our own government is taking. How confident is my noble friend that countries, may I say, like India and China, that are not yet doing enough, will actually step up to the plate on the basis of the scientific evidence before us today?
That's, I suppose, the 6 billion CO2 question, in that we'll have to wait and see. There's a tremendous amount of diplomacy going on. Obviously, my right honourable friend Alex Sharma, the COP president, is engaging extensively, and we do hope that they will publish realistic NDCs before COP.
Baroness Boycott.
My Lords, the UK still has no fully costed plan to reach net zero, and the Office of Budget Responsibility has made it clear that the cost of delaying will increase dramatically the longer we do this delay, and then we won't get the benefits of a more sustainable society and a greener economy. This vacuum of clear policies is now giving space to those who have vested interests in delaying and continuing subsidies for polluting fossil fuels. So can the Minister give the House assurances that it will act swiftly to address this misinformation and ensure that in the forthcoming spending review there are long-term investment commitments that take full account of all these costs and benefits?
Well, we are certainly committed to action. We've published a number of strategies: hydrogen strategy, transport decarbonisation strategy. The net zero strategy will be published before COP. The Noble Lady will understand that I cannot give commitments for the Chancellor in the spending review.
Ms Young of Old Scone.
In the face of the IPCC red card to all of us, will the UK Government commit to a faster date than 2050 for achieving net zero and more ambitious targets than the emissions reductions of 68% by 2030 and 78% by 2035? The IPCC report very definitely pointed those out as needed.
Well, achieving the targets that we've already set would be difficult enough. I like the Noble Lady's ambition to go even further and even faster, but I think we'll stick with what we've got for the moment.
My Lords, a year ago when I asked the Minister whether it was not about time that the government had a credible short-term action plan to tackle the climate emergency, he replied, "Indeed, and we will set it out in due course." In light of the IPCC report, which makes clear that global warming of between 1.5 and 2 degrees will be exceeded this century without drastic cuts in emissions, can he tell us when we can expect to see that credible short-term action plan? And I emphasise the word credible.
Well, as I said in response to a previous question, we have published a number of our strategies. The heat and building strategy is to be published shortly. The net zero strategy will be published before COP. We need to set an example, and we intend to do just that. But these are difficult decisions involving lots of different players within government, and we will endeavour to do so as quickly as possible.
Lord Randall of Uxbridge.
And could my noble friend confirm Her Majesty's Government assessment of the likelihood of meeting the Paris Agreement's target of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees centigrade?
Yes, our assessment is that it is still possible by the end of the century, but only with immediate and significant reductions in global emissions over the next decade and net zero around 2050. So it will be a challenge, but given concerted action across the world, we could still do it.
Lord Grantchester.
The IPCC report underlines the statistical proof of man's footprint across the globe that climate breakdown is already well underway and accelerating, with ocean acidification and glacier meltdown baked in for centuries to come. Does the Minister now agree that the biggest threat the world now faces is not climate denial, but climate dither and delay? Will the government now be revising its NDC pledge to cut carbon emissions, as my noble friend Lady Young has clarified, and bring forward a more ambitious programme for action before COP26?
Well, as I said in response to a previous question, I admire the ambition of the noble Lord and his noble friend. But, we've already achieved more than the vast majority of countries in the world. We have one of the most ambitious policies. We have one of the most ambitious reduction targets. We've made some of the fastest progress among all of the G7 countries. And, of course, it is right for the opposition to keep pushing us to go further and faster. But we have done a lot.
Villamoria.
My Lords, if anybody still has any doubts about the scale of the climate crisis, this report must surely put those to bed. As President of the CBI, I'm very proud that 1/3 of the largest businesses in the UK with a market cap totalling £650 billion have already committed to net zero by 2050. But would the noble Lord the Minister agree that although the UK's 10-point plan is ambitious, we need to see more detail and we need to see clear timeframes for delivery?
Indeed, I can agree with the noble Lord in the first part of his question. It's been encouraging to see the number of major businesses that have joined us in the race to net zero, and I pay tribute to the work of the CBI in helping us to do that. But we've already set a number of quite ambitious targets. We have legislated in this House for the carbon budgets, and we will be producing the net zero strategy before COP, which will see further progress.
As the European continent in the Middle Ages warmed up by 1.5 degrees centigrade and then reverted back to normal temperature after a century, could the Minister tell the House of two scientific facts that show that we can actually stop or reverse climate change?
Well, the noble Lord is inviting me to indulge in a long debate about the validity or otherwise of the various reports and the IPCC report, and perhaps we could discuss it outside separately. But I think the IPCC report was a major piece of work, taking on board many of the assessments from world-leading scientists, and I think we would do well to take it seriously.
Annis Jones of Woolscombe.
My Lords, since 2007, the IPCC has been rapidly increasing its assessment of potential sea level rises. So when will the planning process reflect the fact that the siting of nuclear power stations in coastal areas is actually not a viable option?
I think the noble lady does raise a valid point, because, of course, the effects of climate change, including rising sea level, but they are consolidated and they are considered and adapted throughout the lifetime of nuclear power stations. As the Noble Lady, of course, is aware, we have a very robust regulatory framework. Planning permissions, environmental permit requirements mean that no site can be built or developed unless all of these factors are taken fully into account.